Hello, everyone, and welcome to Next Level Leadership, a live stream series to support leaders during this crisis. Last episode, we learned how to make conscious choices. We learned three things. One, some choices can only be made once. Two, many choices can simplify and focus our lives. And number three, our choices affect the lives of others. It was a great session. Thank you so much for joining. And I want to share you another really amazing program that's going to start just next week. And it's called Leaders Rising, and it's a micro course series. This is available to all entrepreneur members of Entrepreneurs Organization. And you'll see Warren Rustand, of course. You'll see Connor Neal, Jenny Evans, and Heidi Hanna. And I just want to share a couple of the things that are going to be happening during these sessions. And I'll be sure to post this in the link so you'll have access to it. So there's going to be 4 modules. The first module is going to be all about building resiliency. That's with Jenny Evans. She's going to talk to us about really getting healthy and getting empowered and getting busy in terms of our bodies and getting us into a really, really healthy space. Then module 2 is going to be about communicating impact with Connor Neal. And he is amazing. I have personally been trained by him. He's a fantastic coach, and he's going to help us communicate. He's going to help us really think about how we can effectively communicate during this crisis. And module 3 is positively contagious with Heidi Hanna. And if you have not seen Heidi Hanna, she is amazing at helping centering our mind and helping us get to a space and a place where we can really perform our best. And of course, module 4, you may have heard, it's Warren Rustand. He's going to help us be laser focused on priorities. So I'm going to post this. This is going to be a 4-module series, and you'll see that posted in the Facebook chat sometime later today. So I want to talk about today's session, which is engaging in a cause greater than self. Warren's going to share ways that we can really engage in a cause, right? Something bigger than who we are in the service of others to continue the momentum of our life. And of course, each week I get the opportunity to welcome Warren and to introduce him to you. And so for many of you that have seen him before, have heard many times, here's Warren. But this one's going to be a little bit different today because I've had the most amazing opportunity to meet Warren Rustand and to be led by Warren Rustand, to learn how to be a better person by Warren Rustand. And I hope that each of you in these last 9 series have become better, right? Have become the best version of yourself, because this is what Warren has done, not only for me, but for so many people on this planet. You know, we've seen people in these series from every single continent. It's been amazing, and thank you so much for sharing. I wanted to share for the people that may have just seen this episode once a little bit more about Warren Rustand. Not only has he impacted thousands and thousands and thousands of leaders, but he is the former CEO of an amazing company called Providence Service Corporation. He served on the board of directors of over 50 public, private, and not-for-profit companies. He served as appointment secretary to President Ford. He was global chairman of WPO, co-founder and dean of faculty at the Entrepreneurs Organization's EO Leadership Academy, countless awards, Sports Hall of Fame, White House Fellow. But the award he treasures the most is Father of the Year in his hometown of Tucson, Arizona. And the thing I treasure the most about this amazing person is the gift that he has given us through this series. So thank you, Warren. So here's Warren.
Hey, good morning from sunny Tucson, Arizona. Glad to be with you again in this conversational environment where we can share some thoughts, concerns, ideas, and I hope you'll join us in this conversation by sharing those questions that you might have, comments that you'd like to make about whatever we're talking about today, and give us some idea about how you're thinking and where you are in your life at the present time. So please share your questions. I'll greatly appreciate it. Today, we want to talk about engaging in a cause greater than self. And it's the last in the 5 points that we've been talking about, or the 5 sessions we've had on how to apply personal greatness to the 3 foundational issues that we talked about of leadership. Those foundationals are clarity of vision, certainty of intent, and the power of values. And the 5 that we've applied to achieve our personal greatness to those 3 are commit to a higher level of discipline, live with purpose, act with intent, make conscious choices, and today engage in a cause greater than self. And so we want to talk about some ideas today in the midst of this pandemic, midst of this global catastrophic event, about how we can give to others. And it seems incongruous, doesn't it, that we would actually be talking about giving to others when our concerns is largely for our own safety, our own welfare, our own challenges. And yet it's time for us to reach out. I was asked once, what's a good definition of service? And I said this: help someone who can't help or hurt you and have no one know about it. There's an anonymity to service that's very important, because that's what purifies the heart. We know a lot of people, obviously, who want to be recognized for their service, and their names are on buildings, or they seek fame or fortune by what they give to others. But the reality of it is that true service, a gift to others, is when we give it anonymously, when no one else knows about it. It's just you and the person or institution to which or to whom you're giving. And so this notion is that in the midst of this pandemic, our families have been touched, our economic and financial security has been touched, certainly our communities have been touched. How are we thinking about service to others? We've got the medical, scientific, financial, and economic communities all working on this great project together. Governments are consumed by it at the present time. And sometimes we forget about the individual lives, those of us who are struggling each day to deal with the ramifications and outcomes of what's transpired. It is not easy. It is a big challenge. I've heard from many of you who have lost everything. I've talked to others of you who can get through the next 60 or 90 days. And I've talked to still others who seem to be okay and will get through whatever time frame this is happening. So it's an interesting time for us. It's a time when we could be insular. We could become protectionist. We could withdraw. We could focus on self. But what I've found is, and I hope you have too in your community, in your country, found that people are willing to give to others, to reach out to others, to help the hurting of other people during this time. We've turned from I, me, my to we, ours, and us. And that's an incredible transition. And isn't it something we should be doing all the time? I believe there's an inherent goodness in people. I don't believe that people are inherently bad. I think people are inherently good and look for opportunities to help others and benefit others in numerous ways. So the questions I have for you as we think about this time: has this pandemic, has this time softened you in any way? Has it healed you in any way? And has the earth healed in some way? I'd appreciate your thoughts on that, and maybe jot a question down that you might have about that, or just make an observation or comment in the chat box. Work with us as we talk about this and give us your best thinking. And are we in a healing process that perhaps this whole circumstance and situation was to make us more aware, more self-aware of who we are, what we have, where we're going with our lives? This notion that there are invisible people that we pass every day. We don't acknowledge them. We don't see them, but they're there. They're present. They might be the homeless people. They might be those in poverty. They might be our next door neighbor. They may be people we're passing on the street. And can we become more aware of these invisible people? And can we acknowledge them? Can we respect them? Can we be with them in a different way? So our homes and our communities have been touched in dramatic ways in the last 90 days that we probably never thought possible. This is the first time something like this has happened in our lifetime to this magnitude. And so we're all reeling from that. We're all working with that as best we can. Perhaps it's a time to stop worrying about how we feel and start worrying about doing good. Perhaps the focus isn't on us, and it's not our personal tragedy. Perhaps it's the tragedy of civilization, and that we need to think about it in that way, and that each of us has a piece of that, a reconciliation of that. Each of us has an opportunity to do good in this process. So the first step in service to others is this: subordination of one's interests to the needs of others. It's the ability of us to step back from our needs and subordinate those needs and take care of the needs of others. That's really what service is all about. And that's the definition of service leadership, servant leadership. Such a person is Michael Ross from Orange County, California. He's a young entrepreneur. Known him for several years. Wonderful man. Has done so much to help others. On a trip to Panama, and saw the poverty and the difficulty and the challenges, particularly for young girls who were being denigrated, some trafficked, abused. And so he started helping them. He started helping them in little ways, which ultimately led to the building of a center where these girls could get food, shelter, clothing. They could learn. They could go to school. They could be safe and protected. That's now become a significant effort in Panama. And Michael Ross has done a great job. For that, from the Entrepreneurs Organization, he was given the Global Citizen of the Year award. Not that he was seeking that. He didn't talk about this. Others discovered what he had done and recognized his efforts. Another friend of mine, George Gann, who lives in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. George and I have been friends for 13 years. We've worked on all kinds of things together. We kid each other that we have spent more time with each other than we have with our wives because we've traveled the globe together, talking to entrepreneurs everywhere we can, helping entrepreneurs to rise and be what they can be. George, some 45 years ago, was mentored by Father John. George went to a Jesuit school. And in that school, Father John helped young boys figure out where they were going with their lives. And over these 45 years, he's been a big force in George's life. But as Father John has gotten older, he's faltered a bit. He doesn't have the capability to continue to do the work that he wants to do. And so as he's begun to falter, George has stepped in to take small pieces of what he was doing and try to help him. And now Father John has turned to George and asked him to take on the entire project. And George, after considerable thought and understanding the commitment he was making, decided to do just that. And on his orchard just outside of Kuala Lumpur, he's building a facility to house these young men and give them the opportunities and sense of freedom through education and learning that they can have and that they can go out and impact the world. I strongly admire Michael and George and people like you who are doing such great things, not asking for any recognition, just stepping into the breach. And that leads us really to the second great principle of serving others, right? That is that service starts incrementally and then becomes immersive. When our heart and our passion is in service, we tend to extend ourselves more and more frequently. And so as we do that, we learn more and more about ourselves and about how we can help the world. You know, the Manchu tribe has an interesting saying. They say, if you hear it, you will forget it. If you read it, you will remember it. But if you do it, you will understand it. Service is about doing, and in doing, we find understanding. I think the tribe, and the Manchu tribe, had a terrific way of framing that. So it's leading with our heart, which gives us greater understanding. It's the purpose of giving, really, is to purify our hearts. Let me tell you about another young lady, a woman named Shaylee Basnet. I met Shaylee in Kathmandu, Nepal, about 4 years ago. And I've come to just love her. She's a fantastic young woman. She's about 5 feet tall and 95 pounds. She had a university training, became a journalist in Kathmandu, and then was invited to a mountaineering camp. Not being big and strong, and she was the only woman involved in this mountaineering camp. All the others, strong guys. And as they went through this camp, some were eliminated along the way. They couldn't keep pace. But every time they made a cut or sent some packing, she was always still there, doing what they'd asked her to do. And finally, she made the final cut and was in the final group. And she made a summit of Everest, carrying a 50-pound pack under very difficult conditions. She became one of the few women who has summited Everest. She liked that so much and enjoyed the experience so much that she went into villages around Nepal and found other women in difficult circumstances who would like to try that mountaineering as well. And she put together an all-women's team. And that all-women's team then became the first women's team to summit Everest. After doing that, they decided they would do more. And so they gathered other women and they created a women's team that then summited the 7 highest peaks on the 7 continents of the world, becoming the only women's team to do anything like that. With the extra money that they had raised, they went into these villages and other places in Nepal, and they began to rescue girls who are being trafficked. And now some 100 girls later, they have taken them through mountaineering courses, taught them these disciplines and traditions, and have started new lives for these young girls. A tremendous service. 100 young girls who will now have an opportunity that they would never otherwise had. A powerful statement about a group of women who learned power themselves from doing and then showed others how to do. And you know what Shaylee does when she's not climbing mountains? She's a stand-up comedian, and she does her work at the Improv Theater in New York City. She's very funny, very clever, and truly dedicated woman. So as we find these people in life, they serve as examples to us of giving, helping others who cannot hurt or help them, and about whom no one will know. So the service is interesting. Years ago, I heard a speech by a man named Dieter Uchtdorf. And Dieter Uchtdorf was a fighter pilot for Germany during World War II. He then became the head chief pilot for Lufthansa Airlines and went on to have a distinguished career. In that speech, he talked about lift where you stand. The notion that regardless of where we find ourselves in life or along life's journey, let's lift those around us to a higher level, to a higher place. And sometimes that's a pat on the back, a hug, a smile. Sometimes it's a kind word, it's a handshake. It's all of those things that elevate people. It's recognizing the person that's serving us at our table and asking their name and why they're serving us and what they're doing and what their family circumstance is, what their challenges in life are. It's recognizing those people. You know, Maslow years ago built his hierarchy of needs. And of course, the early stages of the hierarchy needs are about survival. It's food, air, water, shelter. And then you move from there into self-actualization, self-esteem, those things that help the mind. And then beyond that, there's those things that help the soul. And just before he died, he started writing about transcendence being a state that he was adding to his pyramid, his hierarchy of needs. And he never finished his work, but the notion that the transcendence is where we all want to go. And transcendence is being called to a higher purpose. It's the notion that there's a higher value in life that we have to give and that we're challenged by that. And that's really what lift where you stand is. It's noting that in every circumstance, every situation, we can elevate people. We can help people, no matter how much we're hurting ourselves. If we'll just reach out to others, we'll feel better about ourselves. So lift where you stand, and Maslow's hierarchy of needs teach us that we need to move to transcendence, to the higher purpose, the higher calling, which leads us to the third principle or third step of engaging in a cause greater than self. Transcendence is the alignment of heart, mind, and soul in service to others. Transcendence is the alignment of heart, mind, and soul in service to others. It's where we want to be. I once asked a person, what are we all doing here on earth? And he said, we're all just helping each other on our journey home. It's more appropriate than it is today to believe that we're all going through a difficult time. We all need to help each other on our journey home. David Brooks wrote he wrote a book recently called Second Mountain. I hope you'll read it. It talks about our 2 mountains in life. The first mountain is the mountain of acquisition. It's the mountain of gaining wealth and materiality and position and brand and ego and all the stuff that goes with that. And we believe that that'll give us personal freedom. But in the end, we all know that the more we acquire, the less freedom we have because we have to manage all of that. We're responsible and accountable for all of that. And so it makes it more challenging. The two mountains are separated by a river, and the river is called freedom, and the river is a roaring river, and you have to get across that river. You can build a bridge, you can swim across it, you can be pulled across it, take a boat, but you got to get across the river to get to the second mountain. The first mountain is about acquisition, but the second mountain is about contribution. It's about losing oneself. It's about selflessness. It's about being committed to a cause. It's about finding higher purpose. And the ultimate peak of the mountain, the second mountain, is about transcendence. It's about accepting the higher purpose, the higher calling in life. And sometimes when we're going through our own tragedy, we're going through our own challenging and difficult times, it's hard to see the higher purpose. And yet, if we'll just give a little of our time and our heart to others who are going on the journey with us of difficulty, we will find that there's great purpose and transcendence in our lives. We'll feel better about what we're doing. As I think about this time in our lives, I'm reminded of a proverb I once read. I ask not for a lighter burden, but I ask for broader shoulders. So many of us in this time of difficulty and challenge need not worry so much about the burden we've been given, but rather about how broad our shoulders are to lift that burden and to carry that burden and the burden of others. I hope you'll join with me in extending kindness to others, a hand of outreach to pull them along the journey with us. To help others along the way is the hallmark of service and selflessness. I'd like to take your questions now, and I'm looking forward to talking to you again as we go forward from here. And we'll continue these conversations in a way, perhaps another format, but we'll continue our conversations as a way of helping each other. I am buoyed up by your questions, by your thoughts, by your reactions. It helps me better understand everything I'm trying to do in my life with our family. So thank you for all you've contributed to me over these last 9 episodes. And thank you for the gift you've given me to allow us to have these conversations. So now I'd like to respond to your questions. And Winnie, I'd like to turn the time back to you. And again, Winnie, thank you for moderating these discussions and conversations.
Thank you, Warren. And thank you for being on this journey with us. It's such a gift. No words can express how much it's impacted me. And I also look forward to the conversation as I continue. I do want to do a little shout out because I see that Malik Muhammad is with us today. And Malik, I know that you are going to be participating in the series that I mentioned earlier on Leadership Rising. So if you just post in the chat what your topic is going to be, we'll be happy to share that. So good to see you, Malik. There are members here from and entrepreneurs and leaders from Hamburg, Nepal, New Orleans. We've got people from Kenya. We've got Greece. We've got Canada. We've got Los Angeles. We've got Idaho. We've got Fort Worth. We've got DC. We've got South Florida. So a lot of amazing people here today. So I'm going to start the first question. Well, actually, it's not even the first question because you really talked about being in a good place and how important our health is in that, Warren, in several of these sessions. And so Karan Bhatia posted in the chat. He says, I really needed this dose of vitamin W today. Thank you.
Thank you, Karan. I appreciate it.
Okay, so this is a question from Cookie Shah. Sometimes by allowing people to see you're helping others when people are too busy with themselves, does it encourage and motivate them to do the same?
Cookie, great question. It absolutely does. I think the more we do, as people view us, we model the behavior we believe in. We model our values, right? Every day, everything we do is just modeling our values. So the more we can do to help others, the more we serve as an example for those who are watching us. And we've had lots of examples where members of our family have reached out to help different people in our society. And in so doing, they've inspired others who have seen them doing that to go on and do their own service. So Cookie, you're right on target that the more we can do and allow people to see how we model our values, the more they'll be influenced by that and want to do that themselves. Thank you for the question.
We have Puerto Rico, Panama, Tanzania. This is from Don Lamont, and he's been with us a few times. Hi, Don. He says he's softened. He says, by the realization of our vulnerability. I feel our world has changed as it has looked inward and found new loves and treasures we never realized. How can we be more vulnerable today, Warren?
Vulnerability is really interesting, Don, and thanks for the question. And I look forward to seeing you soon. We're supposed to be out at our little farm here the last few weeks. We had to cancel that because of the virus, but we'll do that again soon. Don, I think vulnerability is really important. It's the notion that we're willing to share precisely who we are, as we feel, as we think with others, that we're willing to put it all on the table, that we're willing to share our deepest thoughts, concerns. And I think we've discovered that in new ways during this pandemic. At least I've heard from a lot of people who have been willing to share more openly. I think sometimes in our societies, we feel like we have to keep a shield. We have to keep a face on. It's a game face, right? We have to act in a certain way. And yet what I have found is people who love other people the most are those who are willing to be vulnerable and to share who they are and not hide, not try put on a game face, not pretend to be somebody else. Just be who we are. We're good enough, right? It's this notion of we're good enough. We're okay. Let's share good enough with other people, and people will respond with their own vulnerability. I found for people to be vulnerable with me, I have to be vulnerable with them. It's a two-way street, and there's lots of reciprocity involved. So, Don, I appreciate that question. I hope that's helpful in some way. And I think entrepreneurs, generally speaking, tend to be more vulnerable because we're all on the same journey. And it's a journey of ups and downs and risks and challenges, and it's always hard. And I think sometimes we tend to be pretty vulnerable. And I think that's really important. And I think when we're in those vulnerable sessions, we feel so much better about ourselves and about other people.
This is from Kent Gregory. He's talking about New Earth, the planet is rising. He says, I'm more self-aware and have let go of some of the things that were holding me back. He says, I'm seeing entrepreneurial spirit of higher levels of consciousness, and this elevates humanity. What is the ultimate outcome of that?
The ultimate outcome is to sustain it. It's not just to have it in this moment. It's not to have it in this 60-day window, right, when we're all suffering. The notion is to learn from that new self-awareness and to carry that with us from this point forward, to make it an absolute commitment to carry it forward, that we each have the responsibility of developing our humanity, both for ourselves and within our broader community. We carry that burden and that accountability. And I hope that we're so self-aware that we reach out to people in new ways, more sensitive ways, that we're caring in different ways. As people have cared for us during this difficult time. We've had people reaching out to us because of our grandson having the coronavirus. And during a really near-death experience that he's had over the last 3 weeks, the outpouring of support that our family has felt, the humanity that has come to us has been phenomenal. And when we feel that, we want to extend that to others. So, Kent, I think we have the obligation, indeed the accountability, now that we feel that, now that we have a new level of awareness, to sustain that. Because the lessons we learn today will be for naught unless we carry them forward. And so our obligation, I think, as human beings, is just to carry this new awareness forward and to help and love other people.
So, Warren, I've heard you talk many times about the invisible people, about those people that you just don't see. And this is a time when we really need to be seeing those invisible people. And you talked earlier about service to others. Dionysus Zacharopoulos says, how can we become more aware of these invisible people?
I think the very fact that you asked the question means you're more self-aware, which is great. I think we have to ask the question, who are in our environment around us that we haven't seen before? What's their story? You see, we all have these interesting stories and voices, and we have these interesting stories. I had an experience, and I'm hesitant to say this. I haven't told anybody about this, but so I was in Seattle before the pandemic started to visit our daughter, who lives there with her husband and 3 children. And typical Seattle, right? It was raining really hard and pouring rain. And I happened to pull up to a stop sign, and there, 5 feet from my window, was a homeless man, probably my age, soaking wet, holding a sign, I'm hungry. He was an invisible person. I could have drove on when the light turned green. Easy to do. But I opened my window and I said, "Can I help you?" He said, "Yes, I'm hungry." And as I looked across the street, there was a fast food place. I said, "Well, get in." So he got in the car with me. We drove 500 feet, went inside, bought him some food, talked to the man who was apparently running the fast food business. "Is there a homeless shelter near here?" Asked him about that. He said, "Yes, in fact, our organization works with a homeless shelter. It's about 1.5 miles away." I said, "This man needs a place to stay tonight and get warm and dry and have food." He said, "I'll take care of it." He took my phone number. I said goodbye, walked out, and went to visit our daughter. He texted me later to say he had gotten the man to the homeless shelter, that he was warm and dry, and he has food, and he could stay for 3 days. How long did that take me? What commitment did I have there? I didn't do anything. I gave the man a ride. And others then stepped forward in their sense of humanity to help out. They did all the work. I just had a moment in time where I had a chance to do something. And I acted on that instinct. That's what we have to do. That's what each of us has to do to recognize those invisible people. Sometimes they're sitting in front of a storefront and we're walking in to get something. It's just acknowledging them. "How are you today? How are things going? Can I help you?" It's the notion that they're no longer invisible. And whether they're waiting on our table, they're cleaning our homes, whatever they happen to be doing, recognize who they are, honor them and respect them for what they're doing, and ask if you can be of assistance. And when we do that, we change the game completely for them, and I believe for us.
Yeah, Warren, we're all here many of us still in our homes and isolated. And I think about the invisible people, and I think about also the opportunity to be more visible to the people that are within our spaces and to see them. What are some things we can do to do that?
Well, as entrepreneurs, we're notorious for being passionate about our businesses and maybe not spending as much time with our families as we should, and maybe finding reasons to be engaged with clients at night and not getting home for dinner, and not seeing our children or our spouses or our significant others as often and frequently as we should. This time together maybe has forced us to look at people differently in our immediate environment, to spend more time with them, to find out how fantastic they are, whether they're our children, our spouses, our significant others, our extended family, our moms and dads, our aunts and uncles, whatever that may be. Just that awareness is going to change our behavior going forward. Maybe I won't schedule as many evening dinners with clients. Maybe I won't find a reason to stay that extra hour at the office. Maybe I can find joy and happiness in my family and joy and happiness in my immediate neighborhood that I haven't seen for a while. I've seen people taking walks and riding bicycles and doing stuff that they haven't done in years, and they seem to be enjoying it. And why don't we continue that? Why don't we continue to walk around our neighborhoods and say hi to each other, wish each other good days and good evenings? And why don't we take our kids out and play with them like we haven't done before? There's so many things we've discovered, which is why I asked you the questions early today. Are we healing? Is the earth healing? Has our heart been softened? Those are the really critical things that are happening that I find great joy in. I just think it's tremendous. It's been great for me. I think for our family. I hope it's been good for you and your family. But I think we have just the opportunity to change our hearts, and that's a big deal.
Thank you. I did a shout out earlier for Malik Muhammad. He will be participating in that series that you're doing, Warren, on Leaders Rising. And he just a little update for everybody, and I posted the link in the chat, is he's going to be talking about leaning into conflict. So definitely stay tuned for that. We have a question from Kenji Kuramoto. He says, 1 year ago today, actually, a number of us were with you at the East region of RLA, which is the Regional Leadership Academy. What a blessing it is that we can continue to stay connected. I think all of us feel so much better once we've acted in service to others. But sometimes we get stuck too focused on ourselves. What are some good steps to take to shift our focus away from ourselves?
Kenji, thank you very much. I love being with you. Thank you so much for what you contributed to the Regional Leadership Academy. I think we have to remind ourselves every morning when we get out of bed that this isn't about me. It's about us. It's about we. It's about ours. that we're all in this together, and whether all means our immediate family, our neighborhood, our business, our colleagues, our partners, whatever it is, that the more we can become selfless, the more we're going to enjoy life. The more that we can look inward to our heart and what satisfies us and what brings us joy, the better it is. And you're absolutely right. We can pretty quickly get focused on I, me, my, right? We can be pretty dogmatic about who we are, and our egos can get out front pretty easily. Now, I'm guilty on all counts. I got to tell you, I went through a period in my life, and I'm writing about this in this book that'll be published soon, but in high school, I'd won some honors and awards for playing basketball and being a student leader and all this stuff. And I was thinking I was pretty cool and the world was about me. And I was showing everybody my ego, and I was showing everybody that it was about me. And a wrestling coach named Clint South, a man that I really respected and admired, sat me down one day after class and said to me very directly, Warren, you're a jerk. You're not going to have any friends if you continue to act like this. Your ego is out of control. And unless you get it under control, no one will want to associate with you. Man, for a 16-year-old young guy who thought he was really cool, to hear that was really difficult. But it was the most important thing that was said to me in my entire high school career. I hope that I got better after that. I hope that I learned something from that. I admired him so much for being vulnerable, candid, and transparent to a young man that needed to hear that advice. And I think we need to tell ourselves every morning when we get up that today is not about me, it's about us. Now let's go do the work.
So simple, but so complex, right? Thank you for that. And I don't think you're a jerk, Warren. Thank you just for that story too. That was great. This is from Ambreen Riaz. A really important question because as optimistic as we all are, as positive as we really try to be every day, that we are in a crisis. And you've helped us see this in the last 8 episodes. And she's talking about this whole concept of highs and lows, right? We have them. We experience them every day, some multiple times a day. But how in this time do you come back stronger, right? How do you make those lows a little less lower and the highs more higher?
Ambreen, great question. Ambreen is one of the great professional staff people in the world for EO. And I've had the opportunity to be at several events with her, and she's always so professional, so competent, and you're always so happy. I couldn't imagine you ever had a low in your life. You're always so happy. So thank you for all you've given to me and to my wife and our family. Thank you so much. You've been terrific. Ambreen, I think that all of us do experience these highs and lows, and it frequently is because of where our mind is, right? And so controlling our mind and our mindset becomes really important. And we can do some things every morning, every day that help us. As we feel ourselves going into a low, what could we do that would trigger us to move us back to a better place? So I always keep about 20 or 30 or 40 poems in my mind that I can recite that elevate me. So as I feel myself maybe getting a little down or a little cranky or temperamental or whatever it might be, I'll recite those poems that help me, right? And so I also keep music in my mind. I don't need to turn something on to do that, but I have music in my mind, some favorite songs that I like, and I start humming those or even singing them out loud, which mortifies everybody who's in the immediate vicinity, may I say. But I start singing them out loud, and it makes me happy. It brings me to a different place. I find that being grateful does that too. Sometimes if I feel like I'm getting kind of down, this morning I was concerned about our conversation and what I might say. And so I was looking out, and there was this beautiful grass and trees and birds chirping and the sun shining. And, I just said, hey, whatever I say, it'll be okay, right? Because I'm so grateful for the sunshine and the birds and the grass and all the things that we see every day. I think we have to constantly remind ourselves of what we do, and how we do it. And so I think, for instance, there is a destiny that makes us brothers and sisters. No one goes through life alone. All that we give into the lives of others comes back into our own. So I remind myself that it's about giving into the lives of others, and it'll come back to me because I'll feel better about myself. So Ambreen, I hope that's a little bit helpful. You're terrific. You always brighten my day. You pick me up whenever we're in these events and going hard. So thank you for all you do. You're a wonderful human being.
Thank you. So before I ask you what the top 3 things we can learn from today are, I just want to make one comment about a comment from Malik, because I think this is the sentiment that is shared with all of us today, and that is, thank you, Warren, for shining the brightest leadership light for us to guide us in this crisis.
Well, Malik's one of my favorite people in the whole world. We are very good friends, and we kid each other a lot. We laugh really hard a lot. And Malik, I want to thank you for what you give into the lives of others. You've been remarkable with entrepreneurs, with children in need, people in need. You're a great educator, teacher, corporate executive, entrepreneur, husband, father. I admire you. I've learned so much from you, and I want to thank you for that. I can't wait to hear what you're going to talk about on this Leaders Rising series. I just think it's going to be so good. So thanks for your contribution as well. I really appreciate it. May I say to all of you who've taken your time just to tune in to this conversation, thanks for listening to my thoughts and ideas. I appreciate it. Thank you for the questions that you've asked, the comments that you've made. Everywhere I go that I have a chance to interact with you, I'm lifted up. I'm buoyed up. I'm made better because of what you do. So I want to thank you very much. Winnie's going to put up on the screen the 3 things that we want to summarize from today about engaging in a cause greater than ourselves. The first of which is this notion of servant leadership, subordinating one's interests to the needs of others. The second, service tends to be incremental, and then it becomes immersive. And finally, transcendence is the alignment of heart, mind, and soul in service to others. So I thank you again for everything you've contributed to my life, and I look forward to seeing you very soon. Have a great day.